Face a Dragon by S.P.Dorning. Manfred Pennygigg scowled at the dispatch lying on the antique wooden desk in his office. He wasn't really sure what His Majesty wanted from him. He was, after all, only a humble gnome. Perhaps he was a tad bit smarter than the rest of the gnomes. He did graduate from university, top of his class, and perhaps he was a little craftier than some dwarves. All right, most dwarves. But that did not give His Majesty the right to expect miracles from him. With a loud harumph of released air, he plopped heavily down in the chair and glared at the offending document. "What are you on about, sir?" Kennison, his human butler, asked. It had taken Manfred a long time to find a suitable human with enough intelligence for a servant. It had taken even longer to teach him proper etiquette. But it had been well worth the effort. You'd never find Manfred Pennygigg needing a step stool to retrieve things that were stored up on the top shelf. With a snap of his pudgy little gnomish fingers, his servant, Malcolm Kennison, would come running to retrieve anything that Manfred thought he might need. This! Manfred picked up the dispatch by the upper right-hand corner and waved it in the air in Kennison's general direction. "Sir," Kennison rolled his eyes toward the ceiling, "you know I cannot read gnomish." Manfred's servant was tall even for a human. He stood a little over 6 feet, and when he looked towards the ceiling, it almost made his eyes cross because the ceiling wasn't that far away. He was also skinny. Manfred often compared Kennison to the piece of copper wire he used to clean his pipe with. It wasn't from lack of eating, though. Manfred would have sworn the man could consume more than most farm animals at one sitting. "It's a dispatch from the Royal Army of the Military." The Royal Arm of the Military. Actually, it's a request from His Majesty himself. And it's written in Dwarven, not Gnomish. Not that it matters. Manfred propped the offending piece of paper back on his desk. He unconsciously began smoothing back the wild mop of white hair that never stayed put for long. "He wants a new invention." "How dare he?" Kennison's expression never changed, but the words fairly dripped with sarcasm. "You would think it was something akin to your job, sir." The pause between his last sentence and the "sir" made it seem like the title was just barely tacked on the end. "Oh, you know what I mean. I already have 16 bajillion projects in the works. Now I have to put all those on hold because this one has priority." "According to who? You can't prioritize genius." "Perhaps you can hand it off to one of your employees, then. Surely that would be enough to satisfy His Majesty." No. His Majesty specifically asked for me to handle it. Apparently one of the covert ops people has uncovered a piece of alarming intelligence, which is funny seeing as how I thought covert people were chosen for their lack of intelligence. Kennison rolled his eyes again as Manfred chuckled at his own humor. "It doesn't matter where the intel came from. According to this spy of ours, the elves are taming and training dragons to use in battle." "That could be devastating to our armies, sir," Kennison responded, slightly alarmed. Although Kennison was human, he had been in Manfred's service long enough to consider himself a part of the Dwarven Kingdom. "That it could, so His Majesty has asked me to come up with some kind of defense against them." "Against dragons, sir." No wonder the king has put priority on this. Not even the smartest of gnomes could hope to come up with a defense against dragons. How could he expect a humble division such as yours to do so? It is quite daunting, isn't it? Manfred gazed dreamily off into the nether realms. Perhaps I might be able to come up with something. Like what? What could face a dragon in the air? Even small dragons are dangerous in the air. Kennison lit another lamp to help alleviate some of the gloom of the office, and then set about building a fire in the fireplace. The last rays of sun were disappearing over the mountains, and the lights of the gnomish town of Glenford were coming on. Yes, and according to the intel, these are big enough for elves to ride. Manfred stared out the window, watching the clouds that were colored orange by the setting sun. Really, sir? Really? Do you know how big a dragon has to be for an elf to ride one? No, sir. Neither do I, but I'm sure it has to be pretty big. Maybe we could make big spear guns, like the humans use when they hunt whales. Whales are pretty big, aren't they, Kinnison? Manfred watched the clouds as they formed shapes in the sky while he considered the problem. Perhaps it was because he was thinking of the human whale hunters, but one of the clouds had come to resemble one of the human ships that wandered the oceans of Alengrid. If only real ships could travel the skies as easily. Yes, sir, quite large. But even if you made these big spear guns, the sky isn't like the ocean. What's to stop these dragon riders from flying over out of range and dropping bombs on your gunners? Kinnison was right, of course. He needed some way to take the fight to the dragons, regardless of how high they could fly. That meant he needed to invent a flying machine of some sort himself. Maybe one that could carry spear guns. Not big ones, but maybe a lot of small ones. He could see the beginnings of an invention forming in his mind's eye. It would resemble one of the small human boats, and he would call it an airship. Now he just needed to find something that would carry his airship into the sky, like water carried a human ship. Manfred watched Kinnison as he poked the logs that were blazing in the fireplace. Glowing sparks floated upward on the hot air from the burning logs, and Manfred Pennygigg began to get an idea.